Hi guys, good morning. Thank y'all for coming today. I am Mike Plaisel. I'm your mayor of Kaplan, and it's probably the best job in the world. I love doing it, but that's not what I'm here for today. Today I want to introduce you to my daughter. My daughter was killed in a vehicle accident 2.5 years ago. This is only the second time that we're publicly speaking about it. You're going to hear my side as a parent as to what it's like to lose a child, and you're going to hear a little bit about Christie's childhood when she was about your age. I'm going to try to personalize it that way for you to make the story a little bit interesting. So you're going to hear that aspect from me, but you're also going to hear from the person that was responsible driving under the influence, Miss Ashlee Russo. So she's got a different story to tell. And while we're doing this, what I'd like you to do is try to put yourself in Ashlee's shoes and think about your parents being in my shoes. So Christie was a mother. She was a wife, she was a daughter, she was an elected school board member, and she was a teacher for about 10 years before she passed away. When Christie was your age, and that's kind of where I want to start with, and I had made me some notes. I actually wrote all this down, and I was going to kind of read it off to you guys, but I feel like just talking to you about what's going on and humanizing it is a better way of doing it. So I may hit my cheat notes every once in a while just so I can stay on focus. But so when Christie was y'all's age, she was, let's put her in 11th grade. At that time, as a parent, and I tell you, my biggest thing was, how am I going to get this child through school to get her to graduate? You know, she was a good student. She made her A's and B's, but she didn't like school. So when she graduated, for a couple of years, she flipped around from job to job. She did this, she did that. You could probably imagine my surprise when she showed up at my door one day with wearing a security guard uniform and a 44 in a holster on her hip, knowing that she had never made a shot before in her life. She never fired a gun at all. And all of a sudden she's a security guard, but thank goodness that didn't last long. So she flopped around from job to job. And then one day she came and she said, Dad, she said, I think I decided I want to go to college. I said, oh, well, that's good. What do you want to go for? She says, I want to be a school teacher. I said, oh. I'm like, that's really good. That's great. But the problem is, Christie, you didn't like school. She says, and I remember she told me, she said, no, I don't like school, but I love children. And so she focused primarily on elementary education. She did go to school. She graduated with a bachelor. She got her teaching certificate, and she started right away in Abbeville. So the children just absolutely loved her. She got along well with all of her co-workers. I have some pictures here I want to kind of go over with you. You know, I told y'all that Christie was also, that was her when she was a little girl. This was one of the last pictures she took with Chase. Chase is my grandson. That was a very difficult time, and so I'm going to kind of move this along now and let you know what it was like when I got that phone call. So we were at Kaplan Christmas party for the city employees on December 10th when I got a phone call, and it was from a mutual friend of Ashlee and ours. And I answered the phone, and he told me, he says, Mr. Mike, he says, I have some bad news. And I said, well, what is it? He said, Christie's been in a bad accident. And my response was, well, where's she at? We're at a Christmas party, but we're going to leave right now and go. And what hospital is she at? And he said, he says, you don't understand. She didn't make it. So when I tell you that from that moment, my life changed, it really did. I asked him at that time, I said, does Chase know what happened? Chase is my grandson. Does Chase know? He said, no. He said, we felt like it was best that you tell him. So me and my wife went to his house, and we sat down and we waited for him to come home, and we told him, and of course it was the hardest thing in the world to see, because he was 15 years old. And that was also the last time I seen him as a child. I can't explain to you what happened, but he immediately grew up. He became a young man, from a child to a young man. I'm not sure what all he goes through yet. I know he I'm sure has issues as to things that he has to deal with that I'm completely unaware of. We try to be there for him. We try to reach out, and he is doing he's doing wonderful. I mean, when I tell you he's probably the strongest person in all of this, he really is. He's doing wonderful. I'm very proud of that. So for the next several weeks was just a complete blur. You don't know what to think, what to expect, and it's literally the hardest thing that I've ever had to live through. I'm not the same person that I was before this accident, just like Ashlee's not the same person she was before this accident. I will tell you the things that I deal with as a parent is that I wonder every night when I go to bed whether or not my child needed me those last few minutes before she passed away. That's the thing that bothers me the most is, was she scared? Did she know that she was going to die? Was she hurting? Did she call? I know she couldn't talk, but was she thinking? Was she thinking? What happened? What exactly happened? And I'll kind of tell you what I know happened and why, and you'll understand a little better as to why I have those thoughts and why it bothers me so much, is because they had made a little stop. They were getting back on the highway. They were getting back on the highway. Ashlee didn't see the car coming. Every car has a blind spot. You have to be aware of that. That's why you always look twice. You don't just look once and pull out. You look twice. Ashlee pulled out into the highway, and the last words that Christie ever spoke was, "Ashlee, watch out. And it was just that quick. The car hit them. Christie was thrown through the sunroof of the car, and the car landed on her. I hope, as a parent, that she never felt anything. But we don't know that. And that's why we want to talk to you today about not just drinking and driving. You guys know that you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. And as a matter of fact, I would ask that each of you today make a promise to yourself, a declaration to yourself that you won't drive drunk or under the influence of alcohol, not forgetting drunk, under the influence of alcohol, or even get into a vehicle with someone that is under the influence of alcohol. Because you just don't know how quick things can happen and things can turn on. What you feel or what a person feels like is their intoxication level is completely different than what the state feels like is the intoxication level. Because this accident that happened with her driving, very well could have happened irregardless whether there was alcohol involved or not. But because alcohol was involved, and she did get behind the wheel after drinking, it completely ruined a big portion of her life. Certainly mine, certainly my wife's, my grandson's. So if you pick up anything from this today, be aware of your personal responsibility. Not just with drinking, but for everything. When you drive a car, and all of you drive cars now, I'm sure, vehicles. So when you're driving, please make sure your seat belts are on before you take off. How many times do you, and I'm guilty of it too. I'm pulling out of my driveway and I'm putting on my seatbelt at the same time I'm pulling out of my driveway. That's what happened, guys. That's exactly what happened. They were pulling onto the highway. Ashlee was pulling out. Christie was getting situated in her seat. She was putting on her seatbelt. She never got it on. It's personal responsibility. Don't text and drive. Don't put on your makeup and drive. You know, focus on what you're doing. You have a responsibility not only to yourself, but to everybody in that vehicle, that you are going to do everything you can to protect them. There are some things that you can't help for. There are accidents that you can't help for. And like I said, this very well could have been one of those, but it wasn't because there was alcohol involved. It's really, it's a terrible thing. So Christie was very successful. Like I told you, she ended up, she got her teaching license. She became a school teacher. She ran for the Vermilion Parish School Board. She won that seat. But she wasn't without her challenges. She came from a broken home. Her mother and I were divorced at an early age. Christie lived with me. She had a good personality. Every once in a while she would, for Mother's Day, she would send me a Mother's Day card or give me a Mother's Day card, just kind of making a joke because I was her mother and her father. So she was a jokester, and she would often tell me if I was getting the better part of her during an argument or something, she would tell me, Dad, be careful, she'd say, I'm the one that's going to pick your nursing home, you know, and how I wish that was true. It's not going to happen now, but those are the things that she would joke on. She also went through things, and you wouldn't know it. She was just as sweet and loving and affectionate as you could imagine. She also gave birth to two stillborn twins 19 years ago today. They would have been her oldest children. So 19 years ago today, she gave birth to two stillborn children. She never let that stop her, though. She went through a horrible time with that, and she was determined that she would be a mother, and she was. Chase was born a couple years later, and she adored him and loved him and raised him to be the fine young man that he is. So her successes in life was, she was a great mother. She was a good friend. She was an excellent teacher. And she really fought for school children's rights as a member of the Vermilion Parish School Board. We've discussed my struggle. There's not a night that goes by that I don't think about her. She's in my prayers every night. And as a matter of fact, you know, before the accident, I never had a problem sleeping. As a matter of fact, that was one thing I prided myself on. I never could imagine when people say, I had a hard time sleeping last night. Right? How can you not sleep? You just put your head down and you go to sleep. Well, I'm going to tell you, since that accident, as her parent, I have not slept a full 8 hours straight in 2.5 years. I may get 5 or 6 hours sleep, then I'm up and down, from the living room to the bedroom to the recliner, just thinking. You can't turn it off. When I tell you I'm not the same person that I was, it couldn't be anything further from the truth. So my request to you, if you pick up nothing from everything that we talk about today, is your personal responsibility when you enter a vehicle, and your commitment to yourself and to me. I'm asking you, don't ever get into a vehicle with someone that's driving, and don't you put yourself into this position, or you put your parents or your brothers or your sisters or people that love you that's going to miss you. This is Ashlee. I'm going to let Ashlee kind of introduce herself and give you her story?
I'm 38, I'm from Delcom, right down the road. On December 10th, 2021, it was my mother-in-law's 56th birthday, and Christie was getting her master's degree the next day in education. So we decided to have a girls' day. So we went shopping, stopped, have a few drinks. We had made a plan that we'd leave by 2 o'clock before school lets out so we could be closer to home, not be on the roads. Well, we started drinking, enjoying our afternoon. We got in the car never thinking anything bad would happen. On our way back, we pulled off to the side. When you drink alcohol, sometimes you get emotional. So I had my mother-in-law in the back seat. She was crying. It was her birthday. She's a twin, and her mom had never called her to wish her happy birthday. So she starts crying. So I asked Chris, I said, "Do you think we should stop?" So she said, "Yeah." So we pull over, comfort her, whatever. Okay, we're ready to go. As we get on the highway, as Mr. Mike said, we hit broadside. On my side, flipped over. I crawled out, a few bumps, bruises. Christie was killed, and my mother-in-law was non-responsive. I was arrested, brought to jail for the entire night. Y'all don't ever want to go to jail for anything, not just drinking, driving. It's terrible. Days after, we buried Christie. Have to walk through the church filled with the football team to pay their respects to Chase's mother, knowing that I was the one who took her life. Sat in the church, full of her loved ones, just thinking this could have been avoided if it would have been for me. So we buried Christie. I immediately go to the hospital. My mother-in-law is on a ventilator, still fighting for her life. This is days later. I had to watch Chase, he was 15, go to homecomings, prom, graduate without his mother, knowing I'm the one who took her life. So my mother-in-law ends up pulling through after months and months of therapy. So today, I'm just here to let you know what I live with. I live with guilt. I hate myself every day for it. I ask God, why not me? I was 36 at the time. All I had was a husband and a dog. Take me. I was doing wrong. Christie was an educator. She was bettering herself. Could have gave so much more to the world than I have. But you'll never want to go through it. I'm going through, Mr. Mike, Miss Pam. It's not worth it. If you'll get anything from this today, think about us before you just have a plan, because we're all going to drink. I'm not here saying don't ever drink, because it's our culture. It's going to happen. Just don't drink and drive, because it will ruin your life. I once was a girl that happy-go-lucky, loved everybody. Everyone I'd see, hey, now I'm labeled. When people see me, it's like, she's the one that was drinking and driving and took someone's life. I see Christie was known in my friend, she was my neighbor. So I pass her house every single day, and she's not there. It's a reminder, it's something you never want to ever have to live with, ever. Also, I've done hundreds of hours of community service. I've went to hours and hours of classes. I still don't know 2.5 years later if I'm going back to jail, if I'm doing probation, if I'll be on house arrest. I still don't know. So it's something you can't just go on, or because it's still carrying you, and I still don't know what's going to happen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, so kind of composed myself a little bit. I wanted to read this while it was my turn, but I knew I couldn't get through it, but I'll get it now. So this is a letter that I wrote to Christie on her second death anniversary. Public letter that I posted on Facebook. It says, "Dear Christie, 2 years ago, you woke up to a beautiful December morning. You had a celebration lunch planned with a friend because tomorrow night you would graduate with your master's degree. You saw Chase off to school that crisp winter morning. I'm sure that it was a happy, busy morning. I know that you were so proud of Chase. I will always cherish the conversations that we had about him, his dreams and your dreams as a mother for him. You were so in love with being his mom. However, during that busy morning, you didn't know that it would be the last morning that you would ever spend here on earth. No one did. But he knew. God knew your work here on earth was done, and he would be calling you home to your forever home in heaven. You went on about your morning as you normally would on a day off, I'm sure, getting ready for a fun lunch and afternoon with a friend. You had just decorated your beautiful Christmas tree. And I actually scroll through there until you find that. There's a picture up here of it. You had just decorated your beautiful Christmas tree, and I'm certain smiling at how beautiful you made it. You loved giving of yourself and making people feel good and happy about themselves any way you could, especially children. That was your gift to the world. And you did it well. Yes, it was a busy time for you. You were excited to be celebrating the huge accomplishment of obtaining your master's degree in education. I could hear the excitement in your voice the night before when I talked to you on the phone. Your graduation would have been the next night. Unfortunately, you would never see the diploma that you earned. But you did it, all while going to work every day, being a mom, a wife, a daughter, a teacher, and a friend. I received your diploma and keep it in my office at City Hall to remind me every day how amazing you were. At the ULM graduation that next night, there was a moment of silence to celebrate your life. There was a bouquet of roses in your chair where you should have been sitting. The next week was a blur to me. I don't remember much because I was numb. But I'll never forget the love that people had for you. There was a candlelight vigil at the high school football field to celebrate your life and accomplishments. I remember glancing up to see the huge crowd of people that night, young, old, and all ages in between, that came out either because you touched their lives or the life of someone they loved, and maybe just to say goodbye to someone they admired. Louisiana lost a great teacher and a child advocate that day, and I lost a beautiful daughter. As an elected member of the school board, you always fought for the children. People watched that. People knew that and loved you for it. At your funeral, what seemed like hundreds of students and teachers lined both sides of the steps at the church as you were carried in. It wasn't always easy for you. Only people close to you knew of the challenges and obstacles that you faced as a child, a young adult, and even as an adult. You took those things that would have worn most everyone down and grew from them as a person. Some things made you stronger, while some things showed you how you didn't want to live your life. You use those as teaching experiences, the good as well as the not so good. You faced more challenges than most people would ever guess. Most people would never know because you always had a smile when you went into a room. You could light up the room just by walking into it. Your smile was contagious, and if you zeroed in on someone to brighten their day, you always succeeded. Usually, we could hear you coming before we saw the smile, because honestly, honey, you weren't the quietest person in the world coming into a room. I remember people smiling just because they knew you were entering a room or a party. It was a horrible accident. As a parent, my only hope is that God took you quickly and you didn't have time to be scared, suffer, or need. That's my greatest fear and worry. Losing you is not something that I've been able to comprehend yet. I don't think my mind will allow me to fully process it or accept it. Maybe that's God's way of protecting me. I don't really know. I run into people often that tell me stories of how you brighten their day and touch their lives. I love hearing all of those stories, and I treasure each one. I'm forever proud of you, and I'll love you forever, Dad. So, with that said, I want to open up the forum for questions. If anybody has any questions, then we've given one presentation before here, and that was 2 weeks ago. And one of the questions that was asked, and I'm going to raise it for you because it's probably crossing your mind. A girl said, she says, I hate to ask because I don't want to make anybody feel bad. She said, but after the accident, did you hate Ashlee? And that was a good question because, yeah, I did. There's not an emotion that you can think of, with the exception of anything joyful, that I didn't go through. I went through anger, hate, hurt. You name it, I went through. Still battle. But I also knew that I had to forgive Ashlee for her indiscretion. Because I knew that through it all, this could have happened the opposite way too. Could have been Christie driving and Ashlee deceased, and I would have wanted somebody to forgive my daughter. And forget? No. There's a pain that Ashlee caused me through her actions that I'll never, ever get over. But I did find it in my heart to forgive her. And I know what I go through, but I can't even imagine what Ashlee goes through. Just think about it. You were driving, and whether it was a mistake or not, you had just enough alcohol in you to receive that DWI. You're labeled. Had the same accident happen, people, think about it, had the same accident happened without without alcohol being involved, we all would have been poor Ashlee. Give me her. I'm sorry. It would have been a complete different scenario. It would have been, Ashlee has a burden that she has to go through now because she was in a terrible accident, but because alcohol's involved now. It's a whole different thing. It's a whole different look. Questions, please. Anything? Anybody have anything at all? I know Miss Monique was in the audience last time, and she has. Do you have anything, Mr. Show, that you have?
Just very grateful for your meeting.
We wanted to make this as much about personal responsibility as we did about drinking and driving. Everybody knows you're not supposed to drink and drive, but I'm just asking you, as young people, you're 16, 17 years old right now, make that commitment, not just for a few years, but for the rest of your life. Just don't get into a vehicle where someone's driving. You're better off sleeping on the side of the street than you are getting in a vehicle with someone driving or you doing it. It has a potential to completely ruin your life or someone you love. So, you have anything? You know, I've never asked you, what do you think? Do you have any questions for me as to what, anything?
Just thank you for forgiving me, because in another case, someone might not be so blessed like I am to have someone forgiving, and it's not always gonna turn out, you know.
I heard on the radio yesterday, actually, there was a case in Lafayette that had gone on for 2 years, and it was a similar situation. And the husband, no, the wife of the husband that got killed, she was determined that the person served jail time, and they did get 2 years in prison. So I don't feel like that would serve a purpose in this particular case. So and my family has, after a lot of soul searching, we petitioned the court for leniency for Ashlee on her behalf. But I wouldn't count on that very often.
It's not an easy road, God.
It's not an easy road. I had to try to.
Your life will never ever be the same. So my Pam, mine, my husband's, Chase, it'll ruin your life in 1 second. Your life could be ruined. It's not worth it.
Can you believe with all these sharp minds that there's no question? Come on. Nobody has anything? You have something? No? You don't? Yes, ma'am.
Y'all have never mentioned Chase's father.
I'm sorry?
Y'all have never mentioned Chase's father. Where was he involved with?
Jason's father was out of the picture for a long time. He was out of the picture for a long time. That's one of the reasons why Chase grew up so fast, I guess, after the accident. And that's what makes this story so sad too, is that I'm 67 years old. I'm really the only family that Chase has left. He has an uncle that lives in Houston. try to keep, that's one of the things I do, is I try to keep myself young, active, for Chase, that he has someone, because honestly, when I'm gone, that's pretty much his family. His father signed over parental rights years ago, so he wasn't in his life. And you know, I mentioned this at the first speech too. I'm glad you brought that up. That's really a good question, because I'm going to lead into something else. You're completely off topic. And I wish that someone would have gave this advice to my daughter. This is for the ladies of you. The guys can listen if you want to, but this is for the ladies. As you date, and as you grow up, remember that you're not, when you decide to marry someone or be with someone, you're not just choosing your husband. You're choosing the father of your children. And honestly, that should be just as big a factor to you. And I know it's hard to imagine now, but that should be just as big a factor to you as who your husband is. He's going to be the father of your children. So make sure that you pick somebody that you respect and that will respect you for the rest of your life. So that was a good question. I appreciate that. What else do you have? What else do you have? Do y'all have anything? Any questions? No? Well, I guess y'all might get an early lunch. I don't know.
I would meet up with people and they would say, you know, Ash, since your accident, I used to get me a beer every day after work for the ride home. Since your accident, I had never stopped again. So, well, thank you, I appreciate it, because it takes one time. It don't matter if it's one beer, 2, 10, it can take one time. And then I also meet people, oh, girl, I'm so sorry to hear that, but you don't know how many times I drove home and don't even remember. And that's not what you want to hear at that time. Because I have drank and drove before, but it just takes that one time that will ruin your life and all your loved ones around you.
And labeled.
And you label, yeah. I'll never be the same to anyone, myself included. It's not.
Look, if any of you ever do have any questions, or if y'all want to sit down and visit with anything at any time, Mr. Wise has been to my office. Y'all come by. Y'all come by any time. I'll sit down and visit with you. A lot of times you don't want to ask something in front of someone else. I get that too. So if you guys do want to talk ever, we're here for you. So with that, I'm finished. I don't have anything unless y'all have any questions.